Time now for Back Pages tonight, when we take an early look at the stories making the back pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Pleased to say, joining us tonight, the Telegraph chief football writer Sam Wallace and John Cross, the chief football writer of the Daily Mirror. Good evening to you both. Welcome along. Only one place to start, of course, and that is Liverpool's exit from the Champions League at the hands of the defending champions Real Madrid. Here's how the Daily Mail's back page sees it, and the headline: "Out with a whimper, Klopp crestfallen as Tame exit sums up Liverpool's season." That's from Dominic King at the Bernabeu. Sam, do you feel that pretty much summarises the situation for Liverpool? Tame, tepid, are they the adjectives we can use?
Yeah, I think this was 2 weeks in the making after the first leg. Not much hope was extended for a comeback in this game. Certainly compared to the drama of the previous night with City, this was just a sort of a quiet ending for Liverpool. And I think from a newspaper's point of view, this was a game that obviously has to be well covered, but the outcome is 97-98% sure before we've even started, really.
Yeah, it's interesting, Sam, isn't it, the reflection on it and the sort of anticlimax to it as well, John. Look at the back page of the Telegraph here as well. No miracle this time, Jurgen. It's a sort of understated reference to the game with, again, a very similar picture of Jurgen Klopp with his hand across his face. Manager Jurgen Klopp shows his frustration during Liverpool's Champions League exit against Real Madrid last night. It's a 6-2 aggregate defeat, John, but was it, again, just reflective of how far Liverpool have dropped off in terms of energy and dynamism, and because of that, maybe there's reduced optimism that they could pull something off?
Yeah, look, I think last season, even the season before that, I think you really would have fancied Liverpool to go to the Bernabeu and really put up a fight and maybe even pull off another miracle as they've done, in the past in Europe under Jurgen Klopp. But tonight there was no sign of that, really. I do think that kind of feeling as if they sort of surrendered with a bit of a whimper really hits the nail on the head. We never really felt that kind of the energy and the intensity that we were expecting to really launch some sort of fight back. I never really felt as if that Liverpool were going to score. They had a couple of chances, of course they did, but it was Madrid really that had all the play, all the possession. They forced Alisson into some really good saves in that first half, and to be honest, it just was a bit of a damn squib. There wasn't much of a story there in the end, and it represents to me just how far they've fallen, bearing in mind these were the two best clubs in Europe last season. If you judge it on them both reaching the Champions League final, it was a really competitive final. It was a really close fought thing. Liverpool now out of the Champions League, and their best hope of getting back into that Premier competition is now the top four. And they'll really need it to launch the rebuild that Jurgen Klopp wants.
Yeah, back pages reach us all the time. Let's just take in the eye, Sam, here. No miracle in Madrid. Real see it out at home to swat aside Liverpool. That's Kevin Garside at the Bernabeu for the eye. How do you reflect on Real Madrid's side of it, Sam? Defending champions, but when we look at Napoli and Manchester City, are they the favourites this season? Or do we always have to count them as favourites given the pedigree?
Yeah, I mean, they're not even top of their domestic league, are they, incredibly? But they are. I think they've won 5 out of the last 9 Champions Leagues, which is incredible, really. I mean, it's a golden era for them. Obviously, the 1950s, when they won the first 5 European Cups, was the most dominant era of any club. But this gets pretty close. If you look at the list of teams that are left in it, they've won 14, obviously the most in history. They're clearly really got a great sort of feel for the Champions League. They have some players who've won it 4 or 5 times. It's a squad that's really experienced. If you think of how they squeaked through last season against Chelsea, against PSG, they really are a great cup side with a manager who's won it with 2 different clubs. He's won the Champions League in 2 different eras with Real Madrid. So, I mean, they can never be discounted. I mean, I still feel Manchester City are the favourites, but Madrid have that history. A lot of players coming to the end of the cycle, obviously, but it's still a really, really formidable team. I mean, the first leg that Crossy and I were at Anfield, they were fabulous. They really were.
Certainly were. Let's go to the back page of the Times as well, and I'll come to you next, John. Liverpool's limp exit again a word that sort of evokes a sense of lack of energy. It's like apathy to Liverpool's performance there. And also, there's a rugby story we'll get to. Farrell replaces Smith at number 10. Raducanu on playing at 35%. Tennis story. And violence erupts in Naples. Well, we'll talk about Brighton's owner, Tony Bloom, having a wonderful day at the races and in the Premier League. But that story around Naples and Napoli perhaps is marring a comprehensive win for Napoli, the runaway leaders in Serie A. 5-0 on aggregate against Eintracht Frankfurt. John, we've got Bayern, Benfica, Chelsea, Inter, Man City, Real Madrid, AC Milan and Napoli. How do you see the lineup for the quarter-finals? How open is it?
Well, the draw's on Friday, isn't it? And honestly, I can't remember a time when I think it's so open. I think there is an invitation there for Napoli, who are arguably, the form team of Europe right now. It's incredible what they're doing and the way that they're dominating Italian football. Could they spring a surprise? And yet you look at Manchester City, and Sam and I were both at the Etihad last night to see Erling Haaland blitz 5 goals and all sorts of records. And I do fancy City this year. I know we say this every year with Pep Guardiola because he's such a special manager, isn't he? And conjures up, magical achievements and performances from that Manchester City side. But up until this point, they've felt like much more of a team effort, and maybe makes the wrong tactical call in a big game and blows it and something like this. But I just feel as if Manchester City have got a different element with Haaland now. I don't think he weakens them at all. I think he strengthens them no end. And basically, I think in a way, he makes them more suited to being a cup team. He scores goals for fun. It was 5 last night. And I just think in a really tight, intense game, I do think that if you give him a chance in a big Champions League moment, then I think he'll take it. And I think he gives them a new dimension, a new edge. I do fancy City this year in the Champions League. I have to say, I say that every year, but I do fancy them again this year.
What about you, Sam? Do you think the Haaland factor is significant? Do you think that's going to sway at City's way? Do you think that will relax Guardiola in a sense from the overthinking that he's been criticised of in the past?
Oh, he's not relaxed. I mean, he's never relaxed. You only had to see his post-match press conference last night. I mean, he was enjoying himself, but he sort of feeds off that nervous energy. When it comes to Haaland, I do feel he's a very different type of player in the City team, and he looks different to a lot of those sort of kind of passing masters, those very feathery, sort of velvet touch players that City have accumulated over the years. He's a different kind of player, but he's really effective, and I think he's brilliant in Europe. I mean, at his 2 previous clubs, he showed just how effective he was in European football. I think if someone scored, when you've got a player that scored 39 goals, and it's not even Easter yet, then clearly he's a huge advantage to you. We talk about the decisions that Guardiola makes in games, and always go back to that final against Chelsea, the midfield he selected, and how people really felt that was their Achilles heel in that game. But I think it's very interesting to listen to him last night. He was sort of monologuing about how they'd learned from the first leg against Leipzig. He went on and on about Bernardo Silva's performance, about the little things that he'd done, about shutting a certain passing lane that Guardiola had identified as crucial to the way Leipzig played. And that's him. He'll never change. I mean, he totally sees it as a game of chess, and he's all over the details. But the volume of goals from Haaland, I just think, is overwhelming. And don't forget, Real Madrid and the Madrid press said for years was going to go to Madrid, and he didn't. So that has a real piquancy that if the 2 clubs were to meet at some stage in the Champions League, I really hope they do.